Wild River by Rodman Philbrick. Prologue. The blamers and the shamers have it all wrong about the horrible events at Crazy River. Nobody knew what was going to happen, so it was nobody's fault. A free trip to Montana to experience a whitewater rafting adventure? Who could say no to that? Not me, for sure. Not any of the other kids in Project Future Leaders, which was some kind of joke, or I wouldn't have been selected to participate, because believe me, nobody looks at me and says, "Now there's a born leader." They see Daniel Redmayne, a pale, skinny kid with glasses and a lucky Red Sox cap, a middle schooler who would rather write fantasy stories or draw a cartoon than do his homework. A student whose teachers say need motivation and often fails to participate in class. Lost in his own world, one of them said on his report card last year. So, not a likely pick for anything. Maybe the others were more qualified, and I was just a mistake. Or that's what I thought at the time. Whatever, there were 5 of us in the van that day, heading for a river somewhere deep in the Montana wilderness. Me, Deke, Tony, Mia, and the quiet girl with the bouncy dreads, Amani, plus 2 adult supervisors or guards, as Deke liked to joke. Yuck, yuck. And no matter how unfunny, you have to laugh at Deke's jokes, or he'll pound you. Sky Hansen, the rafting guide, was driving. Cindy Beacon, yes, that Cindy Beacon, was there for supervision and inspiration. As you probably already know, she was the top striker for the U.S. national team that won the last World Cup, and for sure the most famous girl any of us have ever met. I know girls who have her poster on their walls. Boys too. Expensive people, expensive trip. Good thing it was sponsored by Byron James, the famous billionaire inventor. What was he thinking? Probably that our new regional middle school was being named for him, and this was his way of saying thanks. Big mistake, it turned out. Huge. But he had no way of knowing how it would turn out or how many of us would die. Day 1. Chapter 1. Crazy River, here we come. It starts out as the best day ever. For a kid from a small town in New Hampshire, Montana is freaking awesome. The place has mountains high enough to scratch the pure blue sky, ranches half as big as the entire state of Rhode Island, and grizzly bears and mountain lions and herds of wild buffalo, and the best part, they still have real, live, actual cowboys. I mean, think about it. Deke pretends to be bored, but most of us kids are staring out the van windows like we can't believe our eyes. Our whitewater guide, a really friendly dude with a bushy blonde beard and a matching ponytail, has been pointing out the sights. Mostly mountains and canyons with strange names, and glints of creeks and rivers way down in the steep ravines. "Couple more miles," he says cheerfully. "Sorry our primary destination didn't work out, but the Crazy, you have my word, it will deliver the goods." Crazy is the name of the river we're heading for, and we've got our fingers crossed that it won't be as low and dry as his first choice. Can't have a whitewater adventure without whitewater rapids, right? So, it's worth driving 100 miles further into the wilderness for what Sky promises will be the rafting ride of a lifetime. Strapped into a seat in the third row, Mia raises her hand and waits until one of the grown-ups spots it in the rear view. "Yes? When do we eat?" Sky shakes his head and chuckles. "Girl, you must have a hollow leg. We had a big breakfast, and you had a big lunch. 2 helpings of ice cream, as I recall." To answer your question, next meal will be over a campfire on a sandy beach. Until then, you can find snacks in the blue cooler. Mia makes an impish face. I doubt she's really hungry, just making herself known. Deke gives her a sullen look. She crosses her arms and ignores him. Tony sleeps with his head leaning against the window, clueless as usual. And our famous soccer player, Cindy Beacon, the one they called Tiny Dancer because of her size and her moves, is playing a game on her phone. No cell reception out in the wilderness, where she'd probably be reporting back to her agent, which she does a lot. From what I can tell, it's pretty complicated being a celebrity. Still, she's really nice and down to earth and doesn't brag about being famous. The van turns onto an even smaller road, more like a rutted trail. We left the pavement long ago, but this is a lot bouncier. Over there! We strain to see where Sky is pointing. Through those trees, big medicine dam, one of the oldest in the state. Built for purposes of irrigation and retrofitted for flow control in the 1950s. Some want to tear it down and free the river. Others think it needs to be rebuilt for safety. All we care is that it feeds the crazy. The van comes to a stop, seemingly at no place in particular, surrounded by a forest. Once we're all out, Sky claps his hands together. We'll hike down from here. Cindy and I will portage the raft. Everybody else take a pack. And while you're strapping up, we'll give the sat phone another try. Sky and Cindy bend over the satellite phone, punching buttons and shaking their heads in frustration. After a brief discussion, they nod in agreement. Sky strides back to us, clearing his throat. Listen up, people. We had to make a decision. Base was duly notified about abandoning our first destination, but the phone is still down. Looks like the battery croaked. So we can't contact them to let them know the crazy is our final choice. Understood? It's not as if we'll be alone on the river, bound to cross paths with other tour groups who are likely to have a working sat phone. In light of that, we have decided to proceed with our plan to raft the crazy and make contact later. We all cheer, even Deke. Crazy River, here we come. Chapter 2. Why they call it crazy. The hike down to the riverbed would be tough even without the packs. The trail is steep and twisty, and the big pack feels like I'm top heavy. And if I'm not careful, I'll tip over backward. I'm not the only one. Amani really does fall over, and when Deke laughs and makes fun of her, Sky makes him take her pack too. This is a team effort, he says very firm. One of us falls, we pick our teammate up. Do whatever is necessary to preserve the team. Understood? Dirk smirks, but agrees. Sky is really nice and everything, but you get the idea it wouldn't be smart to make him mad. I'm worried that if Deke doesn't stop being such a jerk, he's going to ruin it for the rest of us. When we finally get down to river level, there's a lot of work to do. Sky inflates the bright red raft and prepares it for launch. When it's ready, Cindy helps us stow and secure the packs. When we finally get down to river level, there's a lot of work to do. Sky inflates the bright red raft and prepares it for launch. When it's ready, Cindy helps us stow and secure the packs, which contain all the food and gear we'll need for the 3-day journey. Then she takes charge of making sure our bulky life jackets are adjusted and the chin straps on our helmets are fastened. I make sure the elastic strap on my glasses is tight. Just before we climb into the raft, I finally get a chance to check out the scenery, which is spectacular. There are high mountains all around us with peaks like the points of a crown. Awesome! The clear mountain water rushing around rocks and boulders sounds like a distant crowd cheering. Across the river, tall trees line the water's edge like a row of dull green sentries. The ravine walls are higher and steeper than I expected, especially on the opposite shore. And it's just us, not another raft in sight. Feels like we're all alone in the world. Us and the river and the unspoiled scenery. Not a bad feeling, and just scary enough to be exciting. One by one, as our names are called, we pile into the big raft. Sky passes out paddles and shows us how to dip the blades and pull, but not too deep. First rule of rafting, stay in the raft. Okay, for purposes of steering, you can be divided into 2 teams. Team Blue, Mia, Daniel, Amani, and me. Team Red, Deke, Tony, and Cindy. Those are 2 teams, left and right. Today I'll be the raft commander and shout out directions. Okay, everybody good? Here goes. Shove off. The currents sweep us away from the shore, and the big raft starts spinning. Sky finally gets us pointed in the right direction by shouting, "Red!" or "Blue!" At first, I'm afraid to paddle. I really don't want to fall out of the raft. But then I start to get the hang of it. It's fun! At the first turn, we're almost swept up onto the rocky shore. At the last moment, we manage to get the raft back into the middle of the river. "Well done!" Sky exclaims. "You're getting the hang of it. 2 more turns and we'll find the rapids, or they'll find us." He explains that this is how the river got its name. So many crazy twists and turns. We manage to keep the raft centered through both turns, and then suddenly we start to pick up speed, like we're sliding down a slippery ladder, going faster and faster. I hear it before we see it, the roar of the white water rapids. A second later, the bottom of the world seems to drop away. Waves spray, big rocks, they all blur together. I'm instantly soaked from head to foot, and that's fun too. The raft bobs and tips, and a couple of times it almost flips over. But that's fun too. Like the coolest ride in the coolest water park ever. Or what it feels like. I think most of us are screaming, partly in terror and partly for the sheer fun of it. And we're all improving with the paddle work. The only one not cheering is Amani, but from the way she handles her paddle, I'm guessing this isn't her first rafting expedition. Sky has his hands full keeping us upright. Suddenly we're spinning backward, and it's all I can do to stay in the raft, let alone follow Sky's shouted instructions. "Red! Red! Red!" He's digging like mad with his own paddle. We're heading right for a huge white boulder, waves breaking all around it. I don't know what to do or how to help. We're doomed for sure. But somehow Sky shoves us off, and then we're spinning the other way, and I get a face full of water that makes it hard to see. Next thing I know, we're out of the rapids and slowing down as the river widens. Our screams turn to cheers. "We made it!" And maybe if we'd stopped right there, all of us would have survived. Chapter 3: The Luckiest Kid in the World. We make camp on a sandy beach as promised under yellow-tinted cliffs that put us in a shadow long before the sun goes down. We unload the raft, drag it as far from the water as possible, and tie it to a scraggly tree. The place is beautiful in a slightly spooky way. The way the cliffs have been carved out on the sandstone ravine, it's so different from New Hampshire that we might as well be on Mars. Sky calls the camp Tranquility Base. "First thing, set up our tents. 5 tents in line with where the raft is tethered. Cindy will assist. While you're doing that, I'll get the campfire going." After the sun sets and the tents are set up, Sky asks us to gather around the fire. "I understand that none of you really know each other. For the most part, you attended different elementary schools. Is that correct?" I also gather that some of you are wondering how you got picked to participate in this program. It came out of the blue, right? A letter in the mail offering you for the chance to participate. All I know about the selection process is that you've been chosen because the Byron James Foundation thinks you might benefit from the experience. Clear? Some of us nod. Deke catches Tony's attention and rolls his eyes. "Here's what we're going to do," Sky says. "Each of you will stand up in turn, state your name, and tell us a little something about yourselves. What you're interested in, what you do for fun, like that. Mia, if you don't mind, you go first." She leaps to her feet with a big grin. Obviously, she doesn't mind at all. "I'm Maria Valentina Garcia, but I go by Mia because that's what my abuela calls me, my grandmother. My dad is a dentist. My mom runs the office. I have 2 little brothers. When I grow up, I'm going to be a lawyer. Not the money kind, but the kind that helps people. My favorite thing to do is read books. Pleased with herself, she plops to the sand and hugs her knees. Deke, he sighs and stands reluctantly with both hands thrust into his pockets. Big for his age and built like a linebacker, with blonde hair close cut and light blue eyes that can be cruel or bored. Is this like Survivor or something? Because the show is lame. We laugh because it's a little like Survivor, but without the cameras. State your name, please. Another big sigh. Okay. Deacon Bailey. My mom and dad work for Byron James, the zillionaire who's paying for all this. So that's probably why I got picked for the program. That, and because I don't get straight A's like my dad did when he was my age. And for some reason, he thinks this trip would help me do better. No chance. Most of the kids laugh, but it's a nervous laugh. My favorite thing is playing Super Smash Brothers. I'm really good at it, even though I'm not good at school. He shrugs like he couldn't care less what anybody thinks and slumps down. Thanks, Deke. Tony? Tony? You're up. What? Your turn. Oh, yeah, sorry. He staggers to his feet, making a goony face, his nose and cheeks red with sunburn. Anthony Meeks? Tony? My parents are just normal parents, which means they can be a pain. Our laughter encourages him, and he starts clowning around. My favorite thing? I don't know, lots of things. Candy Crush, fireworks, telling dumb jokes, riding my trail bike, hip hop, girls. Thank you, Tony. Mortal Kombat. Daniel. I've been dreading this. Giving a talk in front of the classes, like my worst nightmare. But at least I didn't have to study or memorize, and if this is the price of a whitewater rafting adventure, so be it. Daniel Redmayne, sorry, but I'm pretty boring. I have 3 little brothers and we share the same room, so earbuds are essential. This is the coolest thing I've ever done. I mean the raft, not me talking. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Amani? Amani is African American, with braids pulled into a ponytail and big brown eyes that for some reason look cautious. Amani Walker, she says without getting up. I had fun today. Sorry, but I don't feel like talking. Maybe later, Sky says. That's okay whenever you're ready. Something makes me think Amani has secrets, like I've got secrets. But what hers are exactly, I have no idea. Which is sort of the opposite of Tony. He just is out there, being his silly self and wanting to make friends. He grins at me. Dude, what did one toilet say to the other? You look a bit flushed. Ha! Good one. Nah, it's stupid, but I like stupid jokes. Does that make me stupid? No, it makes you funny. Thanks, dude. Cool. We're here to have fun, right? Like numerous adventures and stuff. Death-defying feats. If we'd known how right he was about death-defying feats, we'd have bailed right then. Supper is hot dogs on sticks toasted over the fire, and corn in the cob cooked in aluminum foil, and baked new potatoes that taste amazing with salt and pepper. Dessert is little cups of half melted ice cream from Sky's backpack cooler. Nobody complains, not even Deke, and we eat till our stomachs are bursting. After, Sky tells a funny story about his first time camping out and all the mistakes he made. Then he talks about what to expect on the river tomorrow. Cindy tells what it was like scoring the goal that won the big game and how it was all instinct and muscle memory. By then, we're all yawning, and Sky calls it a night and warns us we'll be up at first light. We might get some rain, he says. Looks like a weather system is coming in from the west. If need be, I'll break out the rain gear in the morning. The way it works, with 5 tents for 7 people, I get a tent to myself, which is a huge improvement on double bunk beds and little brothers who have fart contests on a regular basis. Lying there in my new sleeping bag, listening to the splashy murmur of the river, I figure I'm the luckiest kid in the world. I fall asleep dreaming that Dad is taking his medication and acting normal, and there's nothing to be worried about anymore. What wakes me is rain pounding the tent and the ground shaking, and a thunderous roar in the distance coming closer and Sky Hansen screaming our names. Day 2, Chapter 4, Gone, Gone, Gone. I jam my baseball cap on my head and stumble out of my tent into the crazy dark. Scared to death because they don't know what's happening or why the adults are so frightened. Instantly the rain drenches through my clothes, right to my skin. The dam has failed! Sky screams. Flood! Flood! Get to higher ground! The cliffs! All I can see are shapes moving, so I follow them, my heart pounding like an insane drum. Out of the darkness, somebody grabs my hand, somebody strong. Sky shouts, Got you, son! Climb, boy, climb! Quick as you can, flood is coming! He lifts me up, shoves me against the cliff, and keeps me there until I find a foothold on the slippery rock. Some sort of instinct must be taking over, because without really knowing how, I'm scrambling up the cliff. Sky keeps shoving me from behind, pushing to lift me higher, guiding me to the footholds. I keep climbing like a magnet to the sandstone, and using my fingertips to find the next handhold because for sure I can't see. When I get as high as he can reach, Guy stops pushing and shouts for Tony. I know that others are scrambling up the cliff, kids I think, but I can't be sure. Panic is making me dizzy, and I'm terrified of falling. Something more terrifying comes into my head. The thunderous roar has turned into something else, a continuous explosion that drowns out all our screaming. My hands find a ledge and I pull myself over. There's room to stand up, but I stay flat, afraid of losing my balance. Looking over the edge, blinking against the rain, I see dark shapes getting closer. Kids are being shoved up, bugging out with fear. I reach over, grab an outstretched hand, and drag Mia up onto the ledge. She's shouting something, but I can't hear her. All I can hear is the roar coming down the ravine, closer and closer. Rushing water, yes, but other sounds, snapping and breaking and pounding, loud enough to shake the ground and the cliff itself. Deke is shoved up and climbs right over me, finding a place on the ledge. Right then, a strange thing happens. Clouds roll away, revealing the moon, and I suddenly can make out Amani just below me and Cindy Beacon shoving her up the cliff onto the ledge. Cindy with a look on her face so determined and so terrified that it almost stops my heart. She knows she's going to die. She knows, but she's still doing her best to save Amani. It makes me want to reach down and touch her hand and say, Thank you, thank you, thank you. But I never get the chance. The shrieking roar gets louder and louder, and then it comes around the last bend in the river, exploding into the moonlight, and an enormous wave of broken trees and rolling boulders surges right up to the lip of the ledge, pounding at the cliff, threatening to snatch us away. I close my eyes, expecting to die. A million years go by, several very long minutes for sure. Somehow I'm still here, clinging to the ledge, and the roar is gradually subsiding. I sneak a peek over the edge. The flood is at least 10 feet below us now, and dropping. Cindy Beacon is nowhere to be seen. She's gone. They're both gone, Sky and Cindy. We're all alone. Chapter 5, What About Us? Hard to tell when the sun comes up because it never stops raining. Cool, constant rain from clouds so low they seem just above the trees. In the pale gray light, I make out 5 of us perched on the ledge. Me, Deke, Tony, Mia, and Amani. All of us drenched and miserable. We shouldn't even be on this freaking river, Deke complains. The coaches were idiots. Mia looks like she'd like to shove him off the ledge, even though he's twice her size. Shut up, Deke. They saved our lives and now they're dead. It's their own fault. Deke folds his arms, defiant. He's the only one not shivering, like he has his own furnace of anger keeping him warm. They changed rivers and never let anybody know. That's like super against the rules. Be quiet and let me think, Mia says fiercely. We have to find a way off this ledge or we'll be dead too. Maybe you, says Deke. I'll be just fine. Can we stop fighting, I suggest. I think Mia's right. We could die of exposure. We need to get out of the rain. Warm up somehow. Mia stands up, leaning back against the sandstone cliff to keep her balance. It's not that. She points down at the inside of the ledge. It's that. See that crack? An hour ago it was barely wider than my thumb. I think the flood weakened the wall, and if that crack goes any wider, this ledge will fall off the cliff. Suddenly, Deke looks as scared as the rest of us, but not so scared he doesn't have an idea. He cranes his head, studying the cliff above. Only way off is up, he says. Tony, give me a boost. Goofy Funny Tony had been trying to make friends with Deke since we first met at the airport, so he's eager to help, lacing his fingers together and giving Deke a boost up to a ledge so narrow he has to turn his feet sideways. Maybe 5 inches of sandstone, barely enough for a foothold. Scary. But Deke makes it look easy, sliding along and gradually working his way upward until, 10 feet above, he pulls himself up and over the cliff. Hey, what about us? His sneering face appears over the edge. Better get climbing, you losers. Didn't you hear what Miss Know-It-All said? Your little world is about to end. He's not wrong. The crack in the ledge is getting bigger, no doubt about it. And that is all for today.